Greetings, 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 everyone. This is such a wonderful occasion. My name is Sipo Kwaku, and first, I would like to extend our collective thanks to the members of the HNC team. Your innovation, dedication, integrity continues to provide people of African descent with new spaces in this philanthropic ecosystem to do good. Also like to, hands up to the technical team who has made much of this possible. So today we honor and acknowledge that this land and locality are on the historical traditional lands of the indigenous peoples of what we call Turtle Island and what is commonly known as North America. We acknowledge the leadership of indigenous elders who continue to teach us about what it means to live in a balanced and good way with all creation. May our time together be blessed as we give respect to First Nations people and of this land and seek to live in a right relationship with ourselves, the Creator, and one another. We trust that ancestral spirits will lead us into all truth for the wrongs of the past and into true reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers, that we may be partners in healing and peace. We give thanks. So in the southern region of the African continent, Zimbabwe in particular, among the Shona people, there's been an age-old practice called Dura. And Dura is a communal granary where in times of drought, there was always a reserve which ensures that people and everyone in the village has enough or had enough to sustain their families. It was and still is a philanthropic practice created by our ancestors. So what I'm about to share with you is an African ancestral recognition statement. And it reads, may we always remember those who have gone before us. May we be inspired by their vision, wisdom, and their valor. May their lives continuously remind us that service is more important than individual success, that people are more important than possessions, and that principles are more important than power. May whatever we do in this space, in this really unique philanthropic ecosystem, continue to be molded by respect, integrity, innovation, humility, clarity of purpose, compassion, and commitment. May our children and our children's children carry forth with pride the nobility of the histories that are presently gathered here in this circle. To the Creator of all of us, whatever name we may call that Creator, we dedicate our lives to making this world better and more beautiful. Ashe.
Ashe, 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 Brother Elder Sipo. Thank you for your lovely welcome and opening Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, Giving Black family, wherever in the world you are. I am Olumide Akerusi, producer of the Giving Black podcast and also the Giving Black conference. And I'm joined by
Queen Jade. So nice to see you all. I'm a strategic dean and philanthropy advisor at Second News. Excited to be here this morning.
Queen Jade. I am excited. I've been waiting for this moment literally 365 days since the last Giving Black conference. Glad to have you join us. Glad to have our audience join us. Want to kind of just thank everybody for being part of this special, momentous occasion. I greet you wherever in the world you are once again. We've got a great lineup for you. This is a bit like kind of talking about your favorite children, but listen, we'll just go through. We'll just go through the fact that we've got a phenomenal opening plenary of some phenomenal change makers and culture shifters who are going to share a bit about their work. We have some wellness sessions, some poetry, and we're going to have time for focused discussion as well. And then we have a gathering where,
Join us. It's networking, it's vibes, it's great. Yeah. It was amazing last year. It'll be even better this year. I cannot wait.
Absolutely. So what are you looking forward to, Queen Jade?
I think I'm most looking forward to the spirit of Black philanthropy, especially in the United States right now, the mobilization of philanthropy and giving all around to our first Black female vice president, and hopefully we'll see where that goes in November. But the spirit of Black philanthropy is incredible right now in the United States, and I'm excited to see what the U.S. is going to bring.
Absolutely, and to match that, I mean, like the work that is going on in building and recognizing philanthropy on the African continent, in the Caribbean, in South America, here in Canada, that also, I think, real kind of, if you like, special stories that we want to get into. And I'm so glad that our audience is global because we can bring the perspectives of continental Africans, Africans in the diaspora from various countries. And it's all happening here in the Giving Black Conference 2024. Absolutely. There we go. And look at that. The love is real. We say that philanthropy is the heartbeat of the world. And the reason that we say that is because we recognize all cultures as being active in philanthropy. But the Giving Black Conference really zones in on one culture, and that's the Black culture, wherever in the world it may be. We want to be steeped in our acts of generosity. We want to explore more about how we give. And we want to be able to share with each other our thoughts and our joys, our plans for the future. And we'll get into so much more detail about the discussions that are going to happen today and the various aspects of philanthropy as we see them as Black people.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, please everybody use the chats. We want this to be an interactive opportunity to hear from you as well as you hearing from us. So please use your chats. We need all of your positive affirmation, all of your love coming out on the chat so we can read them, and all of us can be edified as we go through the day, learning and sharing together.
We can see it popping up.
from across the world. We have people represented Black people represented from the UK, from Canada, from USA, and from South Africa. We're reaching all the four corners of where Black people reside in this conversation. We've called it the change makers and culture shifters. And that's the actual conversation we want to get into. So with that, I welcome my dear sister, Birgit Burton, dear brother Naolo Charles, my sister Nyasha Angela, and my sister Patricia Hamzahi. Welcome everybody. How are you this morning, this afternoon, and this evening in your respective worlds?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Thrilled to be here.
Very happy to be here.
I like that. And I give you a big Giving Black family welcome. Let's get straight into conversation. We call this the change makers and culture shifters for a reason. We understand that philanthropy, Black philanthropy, wherever it is practiced around the world, on the continent or through our diaspora, takes on a unique form. It's centered in community. It's really, I guess, about how we strengthen and support each other. I just want to invite you into a conversation to share with us. Do you see things changing at this moment in time? Do you see the evolution of Black philanthropy at this moment in time? And if so, what is it about Black philanthropy that you think is changing or has changed from, say, 5, 10, 15, or even a generation ago?
Ooh, can I start on that one?
Yes, okay. Please.
This right here, that we are here, that and are you getting feedback from me? Are you okay? I hear it. Yeah, this right here, that we have a Giving Black conference. What does that say? I mean, for me, and I'm old, and I've been in this profession 37 years. So, 37 years ago, when I was just a mere baby starting off in the fundraising profession, I could have never imagined having a space like this dedicated to this conversation. So for me, this is happiness. I see increased visibility and influence from Black philanthropists that might have been in existence. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but just the increased visibility and attention and acknowledgement on Black philanthropists. A focus on community-centric giving. So the growing emphasis in the community-centric approaches, grassroots organizations, right, and initiatives deeply embedded within those communities, rather than just the large established institutions. And of course, the focus on addressing systemic inequities and injustices. A focus on racial justice and economic disparity and social inequality, rather than just providing sort of that focused immediate relief. And I could go on, but my answer is yes. I do see a difference. Have we, addressing everything? Have we been successful? Is there more to do? Of course, there's plenty more to do. But I have seen the difference.
It's amazing to have your insight on this, Sister Birgit, and I totally appreciate your perspective as well. That going back in time, we didn't have these platforms as Black people to share about our spirits of generosities, the stories that are coming from our communities, our experiences of being people who are generous, but also people who benefit from generosity as well. And I want to bring in my brother Naolo as a Black man who is working in philanthropy. What are you seeing that is also changing?
Thank you so much for this question, and really nice to be here to have this opportunity. So I don't know if I can speak for all Black people in philanthropy. What I can say is that in my personal experience, one of the first things that I noticed in the recent years is how the Black community has mobilized itself to create assets in terms of philanthropic work. So here in Canada, for instance, we had the creation of our first foundation for Black communities, or maybe groups like the Black Opportunity Fund, where Black people are gathering, creating assets that can actually be used to support organizations. I think we also want to think about the recent shift. We like to talk about George Floyd, but after what happened with George Floyd, there's been a growth of creation of Black-led organizations. As a result, there's a higher demand for Black philanthropy to come and support all these organizations. I think there's a lot of data that is showing that many of these organizations, if they lose some of their key funding, they would actually be unable to operate. So with a growing demand for growing needs in our communities, more community organizations being created, Black philanthropy has an even more challenging task right now. But one of the things I like to talk about is the storytelling and the way that we do the storytelling on Black philanthropy. So I personally think what is emerging is probably a new way to think about Black philanthropy. And that's really where I see the most promises. Understanding that Black philanthropy, if we go back to the original ways of African people, Black philanthropy is not just about wealth, right? So we come from communities where philanthropy is not just about people who have money. Even the people who don't have money are able to be philanthropists. And I think now as a movement, there's a little bit of an energy that is trying to get us back to that, right? We see, you talked about the new vice president in America, but she got a lot of support from the small people, not just the big wealthy people. So I think we may want to reflect a little bit on the storytelling of Black philanthropy, and I have some ideas and maybe some new stories to share for the people who will be joining the breakout room, so that we can open up a conversation on that.
Love that. I love the points that you are making about the roots of Black philanthropy and the importance of its sustainability as we see these kind of growing challenges and opportunities in our communities. And I want to turn to you, Sister Nasha, because you're on the African continent. You are seeing the African nonprofit sector emerging. And tell us a little bit about that. And please speak to us in relation to the sustainability and the importance of our traditional African customs being able to sustain our nonprofit organizations, say, where you are in South Africa.
Thank you. And really, really love being on this platform. So thank you for inviting me. I think just hearing what everyone else is saying, it's very similar to what we're seeing on the African continent as well, and particularly in Southern Africa. When we look at some of the changes and also sustainability of our nonprofits in Southern Africa, one of the things that you can see is we are drawing from Ubuntu. We're drawing from I am because we are. We're drawing from that grassroots level of acknowledging someone else's humanity, because our giving is based on that. You acknowledge that that person is human. You acknowledge their humanity and their dignity is important to you. So that importance of dignity puts us in a position where we understand what giving is. And I'm seeing more and more organizations coming up that are also supported by Black philanthropists within Southern Africa. From a corporate point of view, I'm also seeing some corporates in Southern Africa and in South Africa setting up trusts and foundations that are there to build up Black people. The mandate that they have from the beginning is just to build up Black people. So that is something that is coming up quite a bit, and it's encouraging to see something like that. It's encouraging to see the change, conversations around decolonizing aid, conversations around what do we do from a grassroots level? What kind of organizations do we need? What are the things that we have in our communities? Because we know how to solve our own problems in our communities. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, especially when Sister Baguette was talking, is when we talk about visibility, one of the things that I'm seeing is as we've emerged in different spaces where we are also migrants, as Black people, we're also coming into those spaces and understanding the fact that I'm coming from Africa, I'm going to give to Africa, but I'm also have this host country that I'm living in. And this host country, I'm also giving in there. So we're rubber stamping ourselves in society and saying that we're actually global citizens. That humanity and that acknowledgement of humanity does not only extend to us thinking about ourselves being in Africa, but it also extends to us thinking of ourselves in the spaces that we are in. We acknowledge and we honor those spaces that we are living in as well.
Very much so, very much so. I mean, Sister Nasha, what you described fits within what I would kind of call the duality, the dual nature of Black philanthropy, that at once it is very intimate and local, and at the same time, it's quite broad, it's community focused, and it's international. And I love that balance where we can give at home, but we can also give when we are away from home. And that is something which I feel is so worthy of being treasured and spoken about and being better understood. So thank you for sharing. Sister Patricia, you're there in the UK, really looking at how to build and strengthen these networks of Black funding. What are some of these new insights or emerging changes that you are seeing from where you are?
Thank you, Mide. First, I want to just say how empowering being in a gathering of so many like-minded people addressing this important subject. It really is motivating and inspiring. So thank you. I would say, just echoing what's been said already, so the UK, Britain, the lovely world of Britain, is, as Nyasha said, crossroads, right? You know, people have come here from everywhere, right? From Africa, from the Caribbean, from the Americas. And so we are that duality about where we, supporting and honoring where we come from, but also contributing and supporting where we are. And I think that's really important, and that, in a way that shaped some of the discussion and conversation. To be honest with you, the word philanthropy and Black in this country has not always come together. I mean, and it's a lot of the effort that I've spent time and energy on trying to make people be aware. Philanthropy is not this, it should not be seen as this elite, not for me, distant mode of generosity. Right? Philanthropy, as Maya Angelou has said, is about loving humanity. And that's where I see the biggest change. After the devastation of COVID, after the tragic scandal of George Floyd's murder, there was a lot of effort to kind of, address, the racial inequities in the society here. A lot of mainstream funders and philanthropists, were starting to question what they were doing and how they did it and the power imbalances. But at the same time, we, as the diverse Black communities in this country, also started to question, what can we do? Do we need to sit here and wait for others to come in and help and enrich our communities? Or do we take more and more ownership about what we can do to change? And I think the mantra that I work by, and the mantra that the people I connect with out there in the community here, is really, really enforcing the by us and for us and with us, so that we know what's best. Right? We come from the grassroots, we come from the communities, we know what's important. And so we are in a better place to kind of help channel the resources and the support that's needed. And that's I think the big change I see. It's not all at once. It's slow and steady, but the reality is that, you know, we as a generous community of givers, as we have always been, are finally having the confidence and the support for that.
Always been, and now our confidence in establishing ourselves and being in community with each other, no matter where in the world we are, to make this, I guess, something that is more elaborate, more visible, more experiential, and certainly an important piece for us, documented. And so this is what the Giving Black Conference really is about. It's about documenting the Black storytellers who are involved in philanthropy. Now, we can't document everybody's story, but if we each are able to share a piece of our stories through this platform, then I just feel that that's something that is just wonderful. And to many people's points, filling this kind of void, because you're right, Sister Patricia, the words Black and philanthropy seem not to be synonymous for one reason or another. But we as Black people, we absolutely see those two words as synonymous. We live that every single day. As Black people, we understand our responsibilities to be philanthropic. I don't know, maybe we learn from the way, if you're like me, your mother was generous, or people in your family were generous towards you, or you learn from actually just having a curiosity and delving more into it. Whatever the situation is, we know that wherever we are as Black people, philanthropy follows us. I want to talk about the culture. The culture of Black philanthropy. I have two, I straddle again this duality, and let me put it in a new perspective, perhaps. The first duality is that I understand the cultural aspects as a Nigerian, British man living in Canada, to support my community, to support my family, to support those who are close and proximate to me as much as I can. That's innate. But I also understand the importance of supporting established nonprofit organizations that are kind of set up under charitable law, and particularly making sure that my dollars are, some of my dollars are also channeled towards Black-led, Black-serving, Black-focused organizations. Now, how are these two cultures coming together? I'm really curious to understand each of your perspectives on that. We've got the very personal, that is, cultural philanthropy, and then we have, if you like, the more kind of formalized, and I use that word like, with a hedge around it, really, because I believe even intimate forms of philanthropy are formal forms of philanthropy. But let's say the documented philanthropy. How do you balance those two, that duality? And I just throw that open to see if anyone wants to take that question on. We've got the cultural and we've got the new, if you like. How are we marrying the two?
If I may come in, I think what I'm seeing and the experience that I'm having in different spaces that I interact is there's a space where we are also now creating wealth. We've started now creating wealth. We're starting to get into that middle class, at least when I look at Southern Africa. And in getting into that space, there is a level of looking at, if we want this to continue, then some form of formalization needs to happen, but also understanding the responsibilities that you have when it comes to the family that you come from, the community that you come from. Part of my life, I grew up in a village in Zimbabwe, right? So, but I also remember that my grandfather was the only one that had enough cows and a plow to kind of to have a proper harvest. So we went with the cows and the plow to other people within our community as well. And that was our form of philanthropy. But that being said, with getting an education, with getting into a space where my family is getting into a more formalized space where you are middle class, we've also started seeing ourselves creating trusts, so that there's a continuation of that, so that the people that we left in our village are not left behind. And there's specifics when it comes to those trusts where we know that money is going to go to our village, it's going to go back home and uplift people in communities, in our community. And so there's a lot of things that are playing right now, which we realize that there is some form of formalization that we need to have, but we also understand that we need to always continue with the grassroots work that we were always doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking to our traditions, right? That's why we say charity begins at home. It literally does, right? That's the first concentric circle of philanthropy, helping our families, helping our communities. I agree. Sister Birgit, I saw you were going to maybe mention something. I'll hand the mic over to you.
First of all, tonight, Medea and everyone else, my neck is going to hurt because I am just nodding and yes and affirming, and I just want to, just co-sign everything. But when you talk about sort of a new era, of Black philanthropy, it makes me think of a sort of a modern Black philanthropy that involves individuals, right, and groups taking leadership roles and making decisions that reflect our own lived experience, which really informs our philanthropy. And also there's a sort of a shift towards more strategic and data-driven approaches. So Black philanthropists are using data to drive our decision-making and so measure the impact, right? And move beyond just sort of the ad hoc giving. And also, while traditional Black philanthropy is often centered on addressing the immediate needs, this sort of new era of philanthropy is focused on more of systemic change and a long-term impact, and that's informing especially, younger folks who are focused on, what they're going to put their philanthropic dollars towards, which will often include more focus on advocating for policy changes and funding efforts that dismantle these systemic barriers. So, and then as Sister Nyasha said, more of the focus on intergenerational wealth. That's here in Atlanta, we have the Atlanta Wealth Builders Initiative that is focusing on Black wealth. And I love what they're doing and the attention that they're drawing to that. So, just wanted to contribute those thoughts.
Thank you. And I have one more question, but I do want to see if Brother Naolo and Sister Patricia have something to share really around this the interweaving of the cultural and the documented or the formalized forms of philanthropy. Brother, I saw you put your hand up, so please.
Thank you so much. So I think one of the ways we can understand these two different types, we can talk about informal philanthropy and maybe more formal philanthropy. And I think in Black cultures, informal philanthropy goes back to something that is really fundamental to our cultures. There's a maxim in Senegalese culture that is Nit Nite Garam. I'm sorry, I'm not Senegalese, so my apologies for the pronunciation. But what this means, it means man is a remedy to man. So what it means is that human beings are remedies to other human beings. And I think you want to, when we reflect on what this means, there's really a humanist aspect to a lot of the things we have in our cultures. You can find that in Senegal, you can find that in East Africa, West Africa, in Nigeria. There's so many models and cultural practices that you will see go back to this notion of everyday informal philanthropy. And we see it even when we go to Africa, we see how people give beyond just having money. Now, if you're thinking about the formal form of philanthropy that is connected to wealth, some of the questions that I think we want to think about is how does Black philanthropy become unique from other forms of philanthropy in a way that we can make sure that we're actually protecting our communities the right way? Because originally, philanthropy is really connected to capitalism, right? So you're creating that wealth from capitalistic practices. And there's also some risk that come with that. But what we need in our communities is another form of philanthropy that's going to be more about that generosity that we have culturally. And the last 2 points I wanted to make is that Black philanthropy is not really a new thing. It's been happening, but what we can see is that consistently the stories of Black philanthropy are erased. They're forgotten, right? So I think someone like Madame C.J. Walker, who's known as she was the first self-made millionaire in America. And we talk about her business work, but we don't talk about how much philanthropy she's done as well, right? And so there's a lot of these stories. The last example I want to give, and I would love to expand on that in the breakout room. I actually say that Black people, if you look at history, we have been introduced to the world as philanthropists. So we also have to relearn our history. Why am I saying that? Is because the key event when Africa was put on the map was in the 14th century when Mansa Musa did his trip to the Mecca. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but when he went, that was the first time that actually most of the world started paying attention to Africa. Why? Because Mansa Musa donated so much gold on his way to the Mecca that he even collapsed the value of gold in Egypt for like 12 years. This was a moment of philanthropy. We were introduced to the world as philanthropy. So I think we want to rethink the way we do the Black philanthropy storytelling, because originally that's how we got introduced to the world, and we have to be able to return to that as well.
I'm speechless right now, so I'm just going to hand the mic over to my sister, Patricia. Anything you want to share on that front?
Just really quickly, Mideh. Again, endorsing everything that's just been said. I just wanted to focus a little bit on this formal versus cultural, or how I frame it more community philanthropy, community giving. We know research has shown that the least affluent in society give the most, right? When you can add it up. So a lot of my work is really focused on that sense of collective giving, so that no matter how much you have in your pocket, in your handbag, how much you have this instinct, this desire, this commitment to put it into the communal pot to make sure that's your grain store, right? I mean, that's your, that's Susu, that's Podna. There's so many examples of how we have always, right, looked at community as being, again, family and community. That's the heart of it. The formal structures have been one of the reasons why I think a lot of us are doing the work that we're doing, because they have been set up to make it very, very difficult for us to demonstrate the strength, right, of what community can achieve. All the hoops people have to go through to even, get anything from the formal structures. And even as those formal structures are trying to question how they do things, it is a few and far between, right? It's not a groundswell. So I think our approach as really staying focused on community is where the real change happens. The more and more we can embrace what community means, I think the more advantage we have in this story.
Going back to the maxim, charity begins at home. I think, Nolo, you mentioned that man is man, or people are people's best covers. Absolutely. And I see, I'm just going straight into some of the comments here, and I see Temitayo has written a Yoruba maxim, which means essentially that people are the clothes or the coverings of other people. It's exactly a parallel maxim to what you shared. So we understand the kind of, if you like, the universal language of philanthropy. Now, I want us to get practical for the few moments that we're going to be together in this plenary. How do we grow our philanthropy so that it is sustainably underpinning our Black-led, Black-focused, Black-serving nonprofit organizations? Because we've established in this conversation that it is real, it is traditional, it is cultural, it is evolving, it is growing, people are becoming more aware of it. But from my perspective, we now need to contain this and channel it to Black communities through nonprofit organizations that are set up to serve our communities. I'm curious to hear from each of you the one thing that everybody on this call can do to harness Black philanthropy, white philanthropy, Asian philanthropy, South American philanthropy, so that that philanthropy is transferred to Black communities in a way that we understand that our nonprofit organizations are entirely, at this moment in time, safe to say, underfunded. How do we remedy that? Tough question, but I throw the mic open again.
I'll jump in if that's okay. So I'm not necessarily going to address this whole importance of having the allyships of white and Asian and other philanthropists, which is important. In my organizations, we will accept support from anywhere, but the focus on Black philanthropy is really what I think, and again with this gathering, is about, should be our highest priority. There's a lot of work to do. First of all, to reclaim the word philanthropy. As I said from the start, it's a word that is not embraced by many. People do not, even if you are the most wealthiest banker, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever, right? Whatever, you don't see yourself as a philanthropist because it's just not, the language that you're used to. And also many of us, I'm sure on this call, are just one generation out from not having much, right? So all of a sudden, it becomes a different kind of conversation. So we need to really reclaim the word. Again, philanthropy, it just means love of humanity. That's what it means. And then we have all of those amazing stories that have been shared already here of what this means in our traditions, in our cultures, and we have to celebrate those as much as possible. And then
ultimately, we need to come together. We need to find ways. Again, I believe in collective giving in the sense that in the UK, there are 4 million Black and mixed race people in this country, right? 4 million, according to the last census, right? £1 from that 4 million, 10 pounds from that 4 million, 100 pounds from that 4 million would be important, really important. But we don't sense that community of 4 million, we haven't found a way to see that we have a common ground. And that's the effort to make, I think, most importantly. Why are people giving so much to Kamala, right? Because all of a sudden they have a focal point for where their generosity can be channeled. So.
Absolutely. So come together and reclaim our philanthropy. What does that look like on the ground? I want to ask Brother Naolo. When we come together to reclaim our philanthropy, to ensure the sustainability of our, what I would hyphenate as our B3 organizations, what does that look like? What should we be doing?
Thank you for the question. I don't want to be acting like I have the answers to all these questions, but I have some ideas. And so I personally think that the main thing we have to do is to break the silos. Okay, so we have to, again, a lot of the things I do, I like to start from history. We have to understand that a lot of the social inequalities that our communities are dealing with come from colonial history. And a big component of colonial history is that principle of divide and conquer. As long as we fall for that, we will never be able, whether it is in philanthropy or social project, to be able to fix our problems. I think first we have to break the silos. And the reason why I'm saying this is that even if you look at the structure of the Black community, Black means something different depending on where you look. So here I'm in Canada. Black doesn't mean the same thing that in America. It doesn't mean the same thing as in the UK. In Canada, I believe we have about 1.5 million Black Canadians. You can compare that to the number of black people in America, and within this 1.5, you have 150 nationalities, right? So there's some natural silos that are in our communities that we have to find a way to break. So in my opinion, that's one of the first steps. The second step is, if you look at the structure of philanthropy itself, there's also some silos in philanthropy that needs to be broken. So you talked about nonprofits. I'm not confident that Black philanthropy should rely only on nonprofits. I think if you look at the social sector at the bottom, and I'm just going to give a simplistic picture. At the bottom, you can talk about grassroots groups. Over that, maybe nonprofit organizations. Then over that, you can have larger institutions like hospitals, universities, and then foundations. And then over that, you have companies and capitalism on top of that. So how do we break the silos between all these different things? And how do we change the way that in society taught us how to attribute value to only one part of this pyramid, trust and expertise, that only tend to be associated to the higher levels of that pyramid, when in reality there's expertise at each level. So we have to be able to break the silos in terms of the philanthropic sector, and I think we have to break the silos in our communities as well.
So reclaiming our philanthropy, coming together, breaking the silos. I see a theme here. Sister Birgit, what are your thoughts?
Well, so the research shows that, Blacks give a lot, right? A few years ago, the Kellogg Foundation here in the U.S. Found that nearly 2/3 of Black households donate to organizations and causes, totaling, and this is done maybe, 8 years ago, and at that time, 11 billion each year. So I like what I've heard everyone else say, and basically we need to unapologetically create these Black-led, continue to create the Black-led, Black-serving organizations, funds to support our communities. And I say unapologetically, because, we shrug our shoulders and, we feel like we're stepping on toes when we do that, but not acknowledging that we have every right to do it. We have the money, and we can support our own organizations, create our own funds to support our own communities, and be a tremendous benefit, to the Black community.
Absolutely. Thank you, sis. And we have, if you like, this model of practice that we see in the US because of the history of the United States, the importance of the convergence of the Black community, the African American community. We understand that. And I want to turn to Sister Nyasha to see that if it does the same thing happen in South Africa, how are the Black communities channeling wealth and philanthropy into B3 organizations?
When you first asked the question, I think the theme is just the same. Collaboration came up quite significantly for me. And unlike everyone else who's on the panel, we are not a minority on this side. We're the majority. But when you think about philanthropy, when people talk about philanthropy, they only look at it from a white perspective and not Black people. So I love the idea of us saying that we want to reclaim philanthropy and own it, own the space of philanthropy. own the space that this is what we're doing. Because when we look at mass giving in Southern Africa, mass giving in South Africa, whichever form it takes, it's Black people that are giving because they are the majority. We are the majority. We are the ones that are giving monthly donations to organizations, and organizations that have also come from grassroots level. On a practical level, I think in reclaiming it, the certifications that we all hold, that we put on LinkedIn, why aren't we lobbying to say there need to be modules around Black philanthropy in those certifications? Those conversations need to happen. Why isn't it there? We are sitting in organizations right now. You're sitting in organizations right now. You're learning about philanthropy. You're learning about resource mobilization, but you're taking resource mobilization from a Western point of view. And so you're asked to do market share analysis and all of those things, but you're not looking at the cultural nuances that would actually lead you to raising funds from Black people, which is more important than for us to look at each other as competitors, rather look at each other as a together people, a people that is striving for the same thing, a collective, and a collective that can move mountains, and a collective that is global.
A collective that can move mountains. Here we go. I wish I could spend another 2 hours speaking with each of you because you have just given such rich and tremendous insight. I thank you each, Brother Naolo, Sister Birgit, Sister Patricia, Sister Nyasha. Thank you. The beautiful part of the Giving Black Conference this year, folks, is that if you want to hear more from our esteemed panelists today, they're actually going to break out into some breakout sessions so you can hear more about what they have to share. So think about where you want to kind of have focused conversation or even be part of focused conversation. Next up is my dear sister, Nicole. She's been a mainstay of our conference with her beautiful poetry. I'm just going to say welcome, Sister Nicole. And after Sister Nicole, we have a wellness session from my dear friend, Kamel. And yeah, see you on the other side, folks.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. And it's a pleasure again to be here once again. So, and listen, let me say this. Let me start off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And happy Emancipation Day to those for whom this day has significant meaning. I don't know about you. I don't sing, but I'm going to just say, I'm in a joyful mood. And I'll just leave it at that. I am grateful to be back once more for this 4th Giving Black Conference. And I thank my brother Made and the entire agency's team for their labor and generosity in gifting and blessing us all with this conference. The 2 pieces I offer today are quite different, and my purpose in writing poetry is twofold. I hope the words stimulate thinking. I hope you experience a somatic reaction, and with both your mind and body engaged, you will be inspired to act and just do something. The first piece may not seem in keeping with the themes of generosity and philanthropy, but I see it as being linked to those themes because it sets the context within which Black generosity and philanthropy exists. The first poem is called On Immaculate Conception. Early on, I had no name because I was a figment of imagination. You see, I was conceptualized out of nowhere, it seems. Well, maybe not quite nowhere. I was visualized in the dreams of men as lascivious violence danced in their heads. I was conceived when new beginnings copulated with greed. I was intubated and breathed into life with the passage of time. I was rationalized and birthed through distorted, God-daring lies. I was created, brought forth, and ushered into being to make what ain't real, real. I was baptized in blood and flesh as I slid into you all's consciousness, cloaked and swaddled in a cooled cotton cloth vest. I was suckled on the lavish bosom of church and state. And the more I sucked, the more opulent grew and grew their cup. I was abundantly blessed with everlasting zest. And that's a good thing too, because my plate is full with endless work to do. I was drunk on desire to make my image loom larger and larger. I was scattered like seed to take root and spread. And so fruitful was I, the mere idea of me multiplied and multiplied. I was designed to sprout into spaces where there's not much divide. And it's in these fissures that I thrive and come alive. You see, my strategy is to gather disciples and converts as I move along, peddling a snake oil social hierarchy as the national way things must be. I infiltrate and hypnotize minds, miraculously convincing more and more an exclusive club is their divine home. With holy book in one hand and a whip in the other, all resistance from others against this newfound consciously constructed social order will be met with the raining down of dread and holy terror. You see, I'm here. I'm nameless no more. I'm real and no longer a figment of wild dreams. See you next time.
Wow. No longer a figment of wild dreams. As we reflect on your words, Sister Nicole, thank you so much. I'm always appreciative of you. Year one, year two, year three, and now here we are together again in year 4 of the Giving Black Conference.
Is there a year 5, brother? I'm ready for my badge.
Well, I don't want to talk about year 5 right now. I want to talk about how each year, when you come to the conference, you somehow look miraculously younger.
Oh, there you go. Oh man. Oh man. I'll be back, brother. I'll be back. Morning, Queen Jade. How you doing? Good to see you.
Oh,
thank you,
well,
brother.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. And you know, we're just steeped in your words, sister. We're blessed by your words. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we reflect, our sister Kamel is going to just take us through a session of wellness to ground us, to help us to really be in this place and space and time together. And yeah, gosh, what more can I say? What else could be said about the importance of us just being together, right?
Wellness, of community.
And in community too, yeah.
Here we are.
Okay, Sister Kamel, over to you. We are in your hands, literally. Well, while we wait for Sis Kamel, Queen Jade, how's things going for you so far?
Oh my goodness, so much wisdom has been dropped in the past hour, and I've been following this chat really closely. and just taking notes. I mean, so many gems, so many things. And I timed this. I pre-post I've already got messages in LinkedIn, and I pre-plan my little one-line wisdoms as they've been told. And today's was that, nobody is asking anyone to apologize for what maybe their ancestors or colonizers or colonialists have done. Nobody is asking for today's people that identify or are white to apologize. But what we are asking for collectively as a community is for those people that hold the power to remove the barriers, so that those of us that have given $11 billion last year, so that those Black people that give and want to change the world have a pathway to do so without the barriers that hold us back, that keep us enslaved and chained and marginalized. And that is important as we see that we mobilize even with the barriers. They keep happening, they keep coming, they don't go away. There's certainly not any lack of barriers for Black people around the globe. So what can people do? What can a change maker do? What can a culture shifter do? If you are not Black, you can remove the barriers, because you already see the Black people are mobilizing. We are already making changes. We are already the change makers, and we are trying to be culture shifters. So to support actively, remove the barriers. You placed them there. Your ancestors did. Don't apologize for them. Just remove them and watch us grow, because we're already doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I want to emphasize the importance of the point of every Black person having a responsibility to elevate our Black communities. And we understand the importance of elevating ourselves individually and perhaps even our members of the family, etc. But I think what has come through for me is this sense of community and how can I be well and fine and okay if my other brothers and sisters are not well and fine,
Absolutely.
okay, and okay, that kind of weighs on me, and so the question really is, what can we perpetually be doing to ensure that we are all in community, and those of us who have needs at a particular time can have those needs met, and once those needs are met, actually we then transform into givers as well. Right? There's a reciprocal nature to what we are, and a cyclical nature as well to what I think needs to happen.
Absolutely. I think we're going to move into these breakout rooms now, and maybe come back later to wellness. Well, wellness is always around us, but maybe an intentional wellness session. So folks are going to start joining these rooms. If you want to hang back with me in the breakout hour, please do. But please start joining those sessions.